It brings the nose in. What brings the nose in is the balance between the inside and outside. So when you look down, instead of seeing this, but feeling brace, you want to get the feeling there, and then soften. This is going to be a whole lot more elastic. That's the one end that's too strong. There, make it soft. And actually, that's not what they should do. You're adding a lot more contact than that. So if he's not really eating and chewing it, you've got to look at it a little bit differently. So what brings the horse around, this positions them so that they let go with the underneath. But this balances the bit there, and then he's soft. Here, and that's what you look like. Okay? I know we're not supposed to stare down, but what are we going to do? We're not supposed to look down, but how do we know? So you were kind of saying, come on, boy, you're sticking this right range. But that hand really wasn't working the opposite side of it. So we asked him to flex, but then there we go. Yeah, and that's what you look and feel like. Is the softer one you can do, okay? And so he actually moved off your leg pretty well. You've got to look a little bit in the coordination of your two hands. I think when you go this way, he likes to flex the leg, but the outside of this hand is more control. So you keep the bit more balanced, okay? So the bit has to be balanced on both sides, both directions. Now, when the horse is really in self-carriage, comes with time, it means that they carry themselves in a round up here, a frame, outline. But it doesn't look as if the rider's holding them there. It looks like they want to be there. And one thing's confusing is that when you look at some of these horses, they're born in the bit. That little baby out there, they come out and you ride them and you touch the reins and they go around. You're like, what? But a lot of our other horses that were bred for different purposes, that's not quite as easy. Okay? So you have to be very clear about how to ask for it, but you got to be a little careful that you don't sort of practice the same thing that's not working. Okay? So what I saw you practicing was have a busy right hand and either a passive or a sticky left hand. It's hard for me to tell because I'm not sitting with you. I'm guessing it's a little bit sticky. It seems to me even there is a little bit there. Doesn't even open your fingers. It means the whole arm is a little bit more elastic. Following. Following. There. Oh, there. That's more elastic. And a lot of times these horses that are bracing are actually fairly sensitive in their mouths. They've learned to kind of say, okay, well, I'm just going to be a little racy and then you can't bother my mouth. But the really gives, unless we're really elastic, then they want to pop right up again. Okay? So let's go to the left. Let's talk that one. First day I have to talk a lot. There's a lot of talking. Because I have to make sure, with kids you can just tell them what to do. With adults they have to understand it and be able to verbalize the concepts, otherwise you can't repeat it. It doesn't, it's not really understood. Okay, and try. And just compare the two sides. How does it feel different? Yeah, so to me, you have a little bit of a habit. You tend to kind of try to fiddle him onto the bit. Like fiddle with the reins a little bit. Does it feel that way? Play the reins?
I feel like he wants to move my hands a lot too.
Okay. You feel like you pull your hands around?
Yeah.
Okay. How much do you wear?
6 and 7 8.
6 and 7 inch. Does anybody have a big head? Anybody have a big head at the barn? What size helmet do you wear? You don't know. What size helmet does? What size helmet does Robin wear?
I have no
I think
idea.
she's a 7.
What? A
I think
7?
she's a 7.
Okay. There you go. Okay. All right, let's talk a little bit about longevity. Longevity goes back to, is the horse really going to turn my leg without me working too hard so that my hands can be elastic and a little more separate, okay? Then, does the horse move laterally so I can get them to fill out that outside leg? heel and heels a little bit there. And then you should be soft enough that he wants to stay there, okay? If he, I think the two of you get a little bit sticky against each other, he kind of bumps and you kind of pull, you're going to break the cycle. You got to think about when he moved off your leg and the leg goes, and you're coming together the two a little bit, what that felt like and how you create the response. You can see he's still a little bit strong in his underneck. Yeah. It's easy for him to kind of poke on you. Okay? You have to be one to say, you know what? If I have you in that position, you see this line right here? Can't bump anything. Okay? If this is gone, and he's a little counter flexor to make it straight, he can bump on you. So at times, and sometimes you have to say, look, come on, get up. So you gotta be firm enough that you really say, well, still getting, and then soft enough that you want to stay there. Otherwise, it looks as if you're a little sticky against it. Right? Yeah. And the opposite lesson is harsh one too. It's also the harsh one you see with the different shows. I'm not the lesson again. Yeah. But it's really quite important. In terms of cues, you look, absolutely. What's the main thing that comes out? The connection, right? So, take a deep breath. Don't pass fail. We're not in a horse show. It's okay. And go. There you go. There you go. You know, one thing you might do too, you did a nice clip, but you might even, maybe a little late now, but next time, put a little strike right where your ankle goes. Because right now he's got a down coat on right where your heel goes. Okay. So you've got the big down coat on, you're trying to get the response, and he's going, I don't think so. And then try to think about what I said. It's okay to have a direct line, get him to yield in the jaw. So bring your left hand left. Yeah, you may not like it, so you'll figure, there, good boy. And then say, oh, thank you. Keep your fingers soft and close, that girl, and do it again. So I know this seems a little remedial, but it's really quite important for the long run. Not remedial, but repetitive. There you go. That's how round it has to be, okay? Does that feel a little better? Yeah. Yeah. Okay. And it's okay, if I ask you if something feels better and it doesn't, you can tell me. No, it doesn't feel better. That's right. There. Good. That girl. Good. And then when you feel like he's a little rounder and being good, see how quiet you can keep your hands, okay? If you get strong again, come in with the leg first, then flex them a little bit, down the hip with the outside range, and then be a little more elastic. There you go. That's how round he has to be, because if he's round like that, then you can get longer strides, right? But if he's a little sticky, it feels as if you're pushing against the bit, right? Yeah. Flex the left, take the left hand left. Left leg, yeah, yeah, good, and then soften a little bit. Good, and go the other direction, that girl. It's tough, because if they've been happy, you know, with a little bit less impulsion, a little bit less energy, and we say, oh, by the way, now we want to move up to first level, that's hard. You know, they've been very happy at training level. So I see it a lot. Some will be very successful at training level, and then go to move up to first level. And sometimes the horse, you know, isn't quite as ambitious as the rider is. So left arm turned over. There. That changes how your arm moves. Get him to let go a little bit. And then flex a little bit to the outside. Turn his nose to the left. Yep. Turn his nose to the left. Yes. Turn his nose to the left. A little more. There. Turn his nose to the right. There you go. That's right. That's right. Good boy. And pet him with the right hand. Good boy. Good. That's what you want, right? Yes, that one's up. Good. notice that they're softer in the canter, it has a lot to do with how the contact feels to the horse. And
And all you have to do is push this switch over.
Yep. Hello? 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 Uh-oh. Hello? Hello? Hello?
There you
Is
go.
it working? Is it working? Oh, there we go. Okay. So if you notice he's happier in the canter, it really means that he likes the connection from the rider a little bit more. Change rein across the diagonal trotted X. Yes, there you go. That a girl. Keep your thumbs on top. That a boy. Circle here. So you might find that if he softens earlier in the canter, you go to the canter a little bit sooner in your ride. Use the canter to help you with the trot. Good boy. So when you get the hind legs working, look at him now. He's like, okay, yeah, lady, leave me alone, we got it. And then canter left. So I think the one thing that's hard, how long have you had him?
A year and a half.
Okay. Well, I think sometimes we get comfortable kind of in a little groove, and when you change it, when you want to move up a level, you have to go through a little bit of a growth period that's not so fun, and go full arena. Good boy. So if they think their job description is training level, and then we say, oh, by the way, it's first level, that's a big change. And it's not easy to get the on-the-bit lesson. That was not a hit. But it's important. And circle. Big circle. Good. And back to the trot. When you're ready, not when he's ready. Yep. Good. Now keep it going. Keep it going. Keep it going. That's it. Keep going. Keep going. That a girl. There. Good. So your canter did a lot to get the hind legs going. Okay? And you'll notice too, after you've cantered and followed with your hands, he's a little happier in the trot, isn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's okay to canter sooner, but sometimes you need to remind yourself about that whole on the bit aiding thing, because to me, you two, and I'm sure it was because, you know, you weren't quite sure what I was going to ask for, and I was pushing you a little bit. But I think that it's easy to kind of slip back into old habits. There you go. Good. And quiet hands when he's good, okay? The reason I say that, walk a minute. The reason I say that, if he looks around and pretty soft and the bit is still moving, then that tells me that either he's a little out of balance or the rider's a little bit in the habit of moving the bit, maybe to keep him from grabbing it again. Do you think that's the case?
Yeah.
Okay, well, if he's round and using himself, you want to try to be really quiet so that he notices the difference. When he's on the bit and soft, you need to feel like you really reflect that softness, okay? And then if he gets stiff, you can activate the hind legs, but also if the horse is flexed or positioned, they can't be hollow. Now the reason I had you kind of go inside, outside, nice, we're having a bird fight. Hey, go fight someplace else. Bird fight. Yeah, we're fighting. If the under neck lets go, and when the horse chews and then yields, we feel pretty elastic and quiet, they want to stay there. But I think what I see a little bit with the two of you is sometimes if you're struggling a little bit to get him around, your hands kind of stay at a stronger place so that then when he really does let go, he might want to stiffen again, okay? So it's got to feel as though you're saying, now come on, let go, and then, not, come on, let go, let go, let go, let go, let go, let go. It's kind of like a background noise,
Okay.
okay? So I know that this sounds very basic, but I have to tell you, without a doubt, it is the hardest lesson to teach. And, oh dear, excuse me, my stepmother is dying, so I don't answer my phone. Oh boy. Okay, well, not yet, but soon. Okay. We try to be as soft as we can be, but we have to be strong enough to be effective. The reason I asked you what size your helmet was, I was gonna sit on it. And maybe what I'll do, you riding tomorrow too?
Yeah.
Perfect. I think what I'll do is, I'll locate a helmet and make sure I'm organized with my tech. And I'll get on and warm him up for you and just tell you what I'm feeling.
Okay.
Because he's smart. And when you're sitting up there, you know, in training level, we can let him go in a longer frame. It just seems easier.
Yeah.
And then it's as if his job description has changed. And you're saying, okay, yeah, I know, we were just kind of loose and happy, right? Well, now, I expect you to push more from behind and be a little rounder, a little more uphill. And a smart horse says, well, wait a minute. And some of the horses we see, and we're thinking, well, that looks easy. They are hotter than a pistol.
Yeah.
I mean, super hot. I've got a couple right now I'm riding, and I think, wow, this is, you feel like you're on the edge of control. So sometimes it's confusing, because you think, well, it doesn't look as if they have to work too much to motivate the horse, when they're super hot. So, and he's not. Sweet, nice horse, not overly hot. So you have to inspire him to be a little bit more in front of you without feeling as though you get into, it's not that you get into tug of war, but you get into a little bit of busyness. Yeah. So it can be as complicated or as simple as we can keep it.
Yeah.
Use the canter to help you, because right away in the canter he got softer. What that tells you, it doesn't matter who's teaching you. When you canter, you feel the horse go, oh yeah. Think about what happens in the canter. Your hands follow, right?
Yeah.
So if you feel like the horse goes, oh God, I love to canter, you got to think about how your contact feels in the canter and carry that through to the trot. Okay?
I
So
normally
just,
go to canter right away, especially in the winter when he is stiffer.
uh-huh.
I can just go to canter right away.
Good. Good. Well, and one thing too, don't be shy in a clinic. You know, I know you don't know me that well, but it's fine to say, hey, you know what? I need to canter early, because if I don't, it feels as if we're arguing. But if I canter early, it just fixes everything. And I would say, oh, sure, go ahead.
Okay.
I'm not that controlling. Some people are, but I'm not. So as you get to know me better, you'll know that if you need to do something, you just say, hey, if I canter, all will be right with the world. I will say, great, go for it. Okay? So in terms of what has to happen in the canter itself, you have 15-meter circles, you have lengthening and shortening of the canter, you have a little bit of counter canter, not a lot, it's a shallow loop. What's nice about the new first three is that they made it much more logical. You canter and then you do the loop and then you lengthen, because when we would judge the old first three tests, people would gallop the whole test.
Yeah.
Just kind of going, okay, well, they're galloping around, because it used to, you would lengthen and then try to do the loop, and people couldn't do it.
Yeah.
So you have to know that in your warm-up, you've established that he's enough in front of your leg that you don't have to work too hard, and that you start to really develop your half vaults. Meaning, speeds in the canter. Bigger canter, slower canter. Okay? So that's what we're going to work on now, is speeds in the canter. And anytime you take a clinic, it's really, for the most part, every once in a while you'll get someone who's controlling, but of course that's kind of the nature of a dressage trainer, isn't it? But if you really need to do something, do it. And then they might say, hey, why'd you canter? And you'll say, well, you know, if I really canter him, I get him much more through. And they'll say, oh, okay, good plan. Yeah. And you're going to start to really think about the fact that down the long sides, he's in a shoulder 4, meaning his shoulders are slightly to the inside. Yeah? That's right. And then come on a 20-meter circle and lengthen the canter. Go. More. There, good. Now back. Bring him back. Yeah? Bring him back. Now lengthen again. You want to be working on this a little every day. Go. Come on. Go. Good. Good. Now back. Yeah? Good. And then diagonal change of lead through the trot. So in first level we have diagonals just trotting at X, and we also have changes of lead through the trot. And one circle there. So if he gets a little hollow in the transition, the first time you are a little lenient, but then the next time you've got to think a little bit more about having him chew the bit through the transition, okay? So back to the trot. And trot. Good. That's how round he has to be through the transition. And half halt and canter. Keep your contact. Keep your contact. That's right. Remember, with that cute little white nose, it's like a little white beacon. The judge can see it. So, and then come down here. So when they nod, they're just not quite engaging or bending their joints enough. They're using their neck as a counterbalance rather than really carrying behind. And circle. So when he nods a little more in the right lead, it just means that he's just not as supple this way. We knew that. There you go. That was better. That's it. Now lengthen the canter. Let's go. Close your fingers on the left rein with your thumb on top. Now shorten. Bring him back and a little rounder. Yes, good. And lengthen again. And go, 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 go. And then shorten. Bring him back. A little rounder. Yeah, he's got to chew. Yes, good for you. Yay. And then straight ahead. And diagonal and trot and X. Left thumb turned over. Fingers closed. And trot. And then next long side, turn early, leg yield to the rail. Good. Good. Then turn up the center line to reverse. Look at C. Stand him up around your inside leg. Track to the right at C. So right away, think about it. Is my inside hand off the neck? Is he flexed a little bit to the right? Am I balancing the bit with the left rein? Yeah. Good. There you go. And then next long side turn, early leg yield. Left thumb turned on top. So I move the bit too, believe me. But if I move the bit, they better give to it. I mean, they better be chewing or yielding to it. What I see sometimes is you move the bit a little bit and he stays a little bit bracy. So you got to think a little bit about, okay, if he's not really yielding, actually halt for a second. So if I feel like I'm kind of moving the bit, but I look in the mirror and go, like right there, I would be maybe using my ankles a little bit to say, look, because he was like, this, right? There you go. Now pet him. Say, good. So we have to be as, there, no, no, that was rude. Okay, so we have to be as consistent in our correction as they are in their evasion. And he's a little quick at bracing, and you've gotta be careful. If you just kinda go, okay, now I'm gonna just close my leg and close my hand, then it takes a little too long, all right? You wanna get the feeling, rather than just kind of moving the bit at times. And in the canter, you don't do it, but in the trot, he's not quite as balanced. And again, it's this whole timing thing. You've gotta feel like you can position him, balance a bit with an elastic, maybe a sponging outside rein just to get him to chew a little bit more. But you've got to be careful. You're at times kind of doing this, but it's not working. So flex him, bring your inside hand a little off the neck, come in with the inside leg. Balance and sponge the bit with the outside rein. When you feel him really give, then feel like you almost go like this. Because since he's so much softer in the canter, that tells me that that's really a little bit more the connection that he would like to have, okay? You just have to be a little careful that he trains you to fiddle a little bit, but it's like you're not always coming to a conclusion. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like you're almost there, you think, well, I almost got, then I don't quite have it, okay? So, and this is why, because he's, instead of being a little bit more clear and insistent for a shorter period of time, it's as if you're kind of saying, oh, please, 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 and he's like, oh, maybe, maybe, maybe. So you gotta say, well, okay, here's what I want. There you go, good boy, all right? When I came and felt your arms, when I flexed him right, the left hand needed to be a little more elastic. This kind of riding is hard because you really have to be very ambidextrous. And think about it, when you go home tonight, I want you to brush your teeth and comb your hair with the opposite hand. Whichever hand you use, put your brush and your toothbrush in the opposite hand. You're gonna go, I hate her, but it really makes you think about it, because you'll see, like, I'm left-handed, but I do things right-handed. If I try to switch it, honestly, I feel like I'm gonna stick my toothbrush in my eye. So you start to realize how our brains are wired to do things a specific way. Same thing's true with on the bit. Now let the reins out. Just let him go. If he wants to rub his head when you let him go, that's fine. The reason we corrected him was he was yanking the reins down to rub his head, right?
Yeah.
See, now he doesn't want to rub his head. Yeah, so just stand there a minute. So it's not that we have to feel like that, we're constantly on their cases, but when you see a horse, when you see a horse that's got this big underneck, it means that in his pen, he stands a little this way. It's easier for him. So in a few months' time, this is going to be even bigger, and this will be smaller. But right now, with this being big, you've got to take away his ability to use this, because this is it's like an erector set. It raises his head, and what we want to do is move this up so that he brings his back a little bit more up. Go away, lady. Go away, lady. Okay, I gotta put this on now and quit clinking it. So, there, good boy.
Yeah, he's really responsive to that, and while we're holding still.
Right, but see, the balance when you hold his hand, but when he's in motion, especially in the trot, he's not in balance. So yes, as the trot gets more balanced, it will be a little bit easier, but you just have to be careful, because what I see is that he talks you into a little bit of fiddle, 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 but he doesn't necessarily really let go. And so that even when he does, you can't help but be a little slow about softening fast enough, okay? Come here. I know. There we go. That's it. Good. I know it's hard, huh? See, when he's here, this goes away.
Yeah.
And this starts to engage, and his neck looks very, very different. And I know it's frustrating when you're making that jump from training to first level, and you still feel like the on the bit portion of the trot is still not quite consistent.
Yeah.
Very frustrating.
There's days where it's fine.
Right.
He's right there.
Right. But then, but see, it's also hard for us to be very objective. This is going to take a little time to go away, and what's going to start to happen too is he's going to fill out a little more bacteria. Okay? This is going to get more rounded. Right now, he's got a little bit of the under neck, which allows him to raise his head, and a little weak there. So in terms of really feeling like he wants to bring his hind end under, it's going to come and go. Okay? So it's a big jump from training to first level, because you've gone from easy, soft, just kind of soft and not a lot of pressure to, okay, now, we're lengthening, we're leg yielding, it's a big jump.
Yeah.
So you just have to take some deep breaths and say, okay, I know you're frustrated. I'd hope today would be a really soft day, but not quite so much. It's okay.
Yeah.
But you just have to realize that really, sometimes the lessons that we get are tools that we can use. At the time, it feels like, oh God, really? Not this again. But it's quite important.
Yeah.
Because without really being consistent and understanding it, you'll find yourself feeling a little bit stuck. We don't want to be stuck.
Yeah.
We don't want to be stuck. We want to feel like that's a boy. So actually, he's not insensitive in his mouth, but he's just smart enough to figure out how to use his big chest and under neck. At times, he pulls you around a little bit, and if you're not quick enough, maybe, to say, oh, okay, wait a minute, I've got to take away your ability to use this under neck. That a boy. And then be soft enough that you want to stay there, because if the neck looks like this, it becomes a little bit of a habit, kind of like a married couple. That's why I want people to admit, because oftentimes, if we've had a horse for a long time, we could get into a little bit of a comfortable groove, okay? So, your leg yields in the circle are pretty good. You actually responded quite well. You want to just think about that whole feeling. If he responds to your leg like that, he won't be hard to disengage this part.
Okay.
But he has to respond the way he did when he started to really listen all the time.
Yeah.
And probably he's not quite as responsive in the trot as you might want.
Yeah. Especially off of the right leg.
Well, there you go. That's your goal. And it's okay. Every day, you're going to listen. We're going to really work on his leg yield so it gets easier. Because when I come up and touch a horse's mouth, it's not really that much pressure. But that was interesting. He was good, and then he went, okay. That's when the leg comes in. You say, That's it. Good. Oh, yeah, see, don't do that. So there has to be kind of an acceptable range. Sounds bad, I know. There we go. So if he's here and then he roots, you are going to have to say, no. You're defining what's acceptable. Okay? And if he's soft, then you can be soft. Don't do that. There, 3 point. Good. And he needs to chew like that. That's a good thing. And actually now it's being very light. I mean, like really, like probably look at that. Okay. Now first, I was more like that. But see, once he's given, it's quite a bit lighter. Because there's really a pretty elastic feeling through your hands and arms. And it's hard to teach this. It's really hard to teach this. Because we're talking about a feeling, okay? And what a lot of times, and what I see very often, is if a horse is a little bit more challenging to get through, rather than really spending the time to really analyze this and make sure the rider really understands, sometimes it's a little bit glossed over. So I think I know it's very important because it's a lesson that lasts. It will stay with you. But sometimes when you feel like some days you have it and some days you don't, it's not just how he feels. It may be how he feels, but it also may be how you react. Okay? All right, so I have an exercise for you. I want you to, in the walk, you're going to leg yield from, I know I did this before, but I'm going to change it up a little bit. You're going to leg yield from K to X in the walk. When you get to X, you're going to do a turn on the forehand, then you're going to leg yield to this corner.
Anything to drink?
Coffee with cream would be wonderful. Thank you. Try it. Good. Turn on the forehand from the same leg. You're really crossing behind. Tap him. Tap him. There. Cross him. Good. Cross him. He goes, oh, damn it. I never had to do this before. Now switch your whip and leg yield towards me. So, how old is he?
20.
20. 22. And what did he do in his past?
Fox hunter.
A fox hunter?
Yeah.
Okay, well you can be sure he never leg yielded a day in his life before you got him. Really, they don't, I mean, unless they came like from a pony club background, they don't do this. So this is new for him, even at 20, 22. You quite sure, look, I would have thought he was like 12 or 14 maybe. Okay, do it one more time. So what I want you to do when you're schooling is feel as though you get to the point where he'll walk with a little bit more march and activity, and that turn of the forehand just gets a little bit more, a little smoother. You can see he said, oh, this is hard. Here's the good news. They're telling us now they should live to be 30, 35. Easy. Just like us, you know. Look at my stepmother who's dying is 94. He's pooping, and if he stops to poop in the dressage arena, the judge will mention it. So try to explain it to him not to stop. Now turn on the forehand. Come on. Come on. Keep going. Good. Keep going. Keep going. Good. Keep going. Keep going. Now leg heel towards me. Switch your whip. So I know this seems tedious, but this is very basic, meaning that you want to get the feeling that he's a little bit more supple, a little more responsive. There you go. Good. That a girl. Good. Keep going. Keep going. Keep going. Good. And trot. And full arena. Trot. Come on. Wake up. He goes, oh, I'm awake. Go away. Time for you to go back home. All the way around the ring. A little bit of inside flexion. Get him to yield a little bit and then be quiet and softer. There you go. That's it. And change rein across your next diagonal. Thank you. Okay, that was good. Hold off the sound system, spill the coffee, yay. And walk. And repeat the pattern from your next corner. So there you go.
Am I making that noise? I must be.
Over. Good. Over. We'll tap behind. So come on. That way. Turn the forehand. Turn on the forehand. Come on. Over. And leg heel to that corner towards K. And I know right now you need to switch the whip, and that's fine. Eventually you want to try to make it a little more continuous.
Okay.
Okay? Continuous, not stopping in between. Tap in behind. Come on. Tap in. Come on. Over. Now march through the short out. So he's a very smart horse, and he's into energy conservation. So you'll notice that when something's a little harder for him, he gets a little slower, right?
Yeah.
Your job is to try to get a little more activity as best you can. And repeat one more time. You can't go wrong with this, even though it seems a little tedious. Light as possible, strong as necessary. Over. Good. Now right into the turn of the forehand without stopping. Yep. Yep. Cross him. Flex him a little to the right and then soften the right rein. Don't let him back up. Now leg heel to the opposite corner. Don't stop. So start it and then switch your whip. You see? Like that.
Yeah.
Good. Then you don't have to stop. Because the whole idea is we're trying to get to the point where we can use this to get him thinking more forward. If he stops, he thinks more about stopping. And trot. Stretch your leg down. And full arena, go. Posting. Go. Come on. Fast. Quiet right hand. Quiet. Push him. There you go. So I want you to be a little careful. What I see sometimes is If he's not soft enough, you get a little bit busy, but he doesn't necessarily yield and chew the bit. Now flex him to the outside, turn his head to the right. Yup. Now turn his head a little bit to the left. I know this sounds bad, but sometimes we have to get them just to loosen their pole a little bit. There you go. See the difference? And flex him to the right. When you watch the video, I don't know, sometimes it's hard. You want to see if when he's rounder or yielding, if your hands are quiet or not. That's it. Push the trot a little more. Soft hands when he's good. That's it, girl. That's right. And counterflex him to the outside. So take the right hand right. Don't just jiggle the bit. Take it, hold the right rein until he gives to it a little bit. Whoops, that's a little too much though, huh? Not to the point where the whole neck swings, okay? Just a little bit. Flex him to the right, look in the mirror. Twist his nose right, like that. Now flex him a little left, just a little. There, yay, and sit and canter. Good, and pet him. Nice transition. Good job. Good. Now look in the mirror. Think about the connection in the canter versus the trot. The on the bit lesson is the hardest lesson to teach, and a lot of people don't teach it. They don't. They just either put you on the lunch line or make you get a different horse, which we're not. This is a nice horse.
Mm-hmm.
She can do with this horse. And straight ahead and lengthen the canter down the long side. But she got upset in the beginning because she's like, oh no, I'm getting you on the bit lesson again.
I get
Good.
that a lot.
And back, moving the bit carefully, diagonal, trotted X. Ride a little more into your corners now, okay? The corners become very important. Quarter line, leg yield to the rail, flex into the right, but don't be shy occasionally about holding the flexion and then moving the bit with the outside rein, okay? You know what I mean by that? Sometimes, look at me, you kind of play him onto the bit. You have to, sometimes, yeah, fine. Flex, come in with that inside leg, hold that inside rein until he yields a little bit more. And canter in the short end. Little follow and lengthen the canter. And go. Lengthen. Go. Come on. She's got a good seat.
Mm-hmm.
He's just talking her into being a little busy. Straight ahead. That's right. Good. And circle. And trot. Yep. There you go. So the more he listens to the inside leg, stands up off the inside shoulder, and meets the outside rein, the softer he'll be. Okay? It's not, I know it reflects in what you feel in your hands, but the origin is the hind legs. That's right. Good boy. Pet him with the right hand. Just, yeah, okay. Good. There, good. Now, when you pet him, you feel him relax a little bit. That means that he actually likes that little more elastic contact better. Pet him with the right hand again. Good boy. There you go. And walk. So, just remember, as a fox hunter, he basically ran above the bit for how long? Really? Do they ride them on the bit? Of course not. When they don't. And maybe there's an occasional rider that might, but in general, would you think of a fox hunter being on the bit? No. Because what are they doing? They're running over uneven surfaces, they're jumping, basically they're sort of on generally a little bit of a longer rein, and the horse carries the head and neck in a little bit higher, and they're left alone. So when we come along and say, oh, by the way, you have to be on contact and be around and be over the back all the time, he's going to say, wait a minute, this is hard. Yeah. So he's a nice guy. He's very willing. I just think you have to be a little bit careful. What I see a lot of times is you kind of play, but it doesn't necessarily work. So what I want you to analyze a little bit, even though I know it seems a little frustrating and tedious and like I'm picking on you, is what is the difference, or how can I do something a little differently to get a different result, okay? So to me, you've got a technique in your mind that maybe worked with the last horse, that sometimes works with this horse, but sometimes doesn't. Do you think that's accurate?
Yeah.
I mean, do you feel like you can get him on the bit, on the trot, all the time in all transitions to the right? No. Okay, so then I just answered my own question, didn't I? Okay, so don't be offended. When I say something like that, I'm not trying to offend you. But I'm really not helping you if I don't try to get to the root of how you're going to improve it.
Yeah.
Okay? It's just like, I don't know, some of us understand this. When you're married for a long time, eventually you're going to have a few arguments you may have had for a number of years, and you keep coming to the same conclusion with the same argument. And either you figure it out or you get a divorce, you get therapy. But what we want to try to do with our horses is, instead of kind of trying the same technique that maybe it works 50% of the time, you want to say, okay, what can I do a little bit differently to change the outcome?
Okay.
All right? Otherwise, you're practicing the same thing, but you're at probably, I mean, in terms of all transitions and consistently in the trot to the right, maybe a 60% success rate.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So it generally comes down to a technique. How, because you're balanced, you've got a nice seat, your legs are underneath you, your hips are supple. The main thing that I see in terms of a technique is that instead of always saying, look, you're going to move off my inside leg, you're going to connect to an elastic but steady outside rein, and you're going to sometimes flex and yield a little bit more on the jaw. You tend to look at me. You play him onto the bit.
Yeah.
Okay, there's a problem with that. Because in terms of, as your training goes with adding more bend and having him work into a steady contact, if you're always playing him onto the bit, where does he go? When does it become steady? Now it becomes steady in the canter.
Yeah.
Think about what that feels like. When you're cantering, look at me. Your hands are moving in rhythm, but you've got a contact on that outside rein. But it's elastic, isn't it? Okay? In the trot, it's very different. So just keep, I know it seems, I have to tell you, dressage is about the details. It seems, I don't know, I'm trying to think of the right word. Like I'm picking on you, or tedious, or repetitive. But it's hard to be self-aware. Well, we took lessons to be directed towards more self-awareness. And you don't fiddle the bit in the canter. So I just want you to think about that. And I will tell you, I move the bit too, but for me it's very clear in terms of what the meaning is. Okay? If I move the bit, the horse better yield to it. Okay? And also, I keep thinking about the fact that the bit is balanced, and ultimately we want the horse to stretch to the bit and carry themselves with air. So if I'm kind of doing this, where does the horse go?
Yeah.
Okay? So just think about it, because you're a good rider, you're quite effective. You just have to have even a little bit more understanding of what is throughness and self-carriage. My goodness, and it's like a big topic for dressage.
Yeah.
So, question for you. What is self-carriage? But how do I know if they're in self-carriage? How could I tell? Yeah. What else is a test of self-carriage? Right now, I'll tell you. If I had you give both reins to the right, would he stay on the bit? No. Okay, there you go. That's what self-carriage is. If you give both reins, the horse stays on the bit. Or maybe they sort of look a little bit for where you went, but they don't get hollow, okay? And throughness. What's throughness? What do you think? What does that mean? When someone says, writes on a test, with a little more suppleness and throughness, blah, blah, blah. I hate looking at dressage tests. Really, because to me, many of the comments are boring, or they're not very helpful. What is throughness mean? What do you think?
I'm not sure how to describe throughness
Well,
without
but
using
see-
the word through.
Well, you're gonna have to think about it. Throughness. How can I, how would I know? Let's say I'm judging you. How do I know if a horse is through?
Whoa. They're on the bit, they're bad.
They're on the bed. Okay. The German translation is through lettiness. It means active hind legs over the back. The energy comes through an appropriate round or frame, and then it's recycled. Okay. There's no crookedness. There's no stalling. There's no stiffness. There's no difference in the acceptance of connection. So throughness. Just think about throughness. Energy through the horse and then coming back around. Okay. So there's no short circuits, there's no escapes. Like if the rider, and the reason I'm talking about this is if I kind of fiddle, but then I'm not consistent in my contact, there's an open door through that outside rein. Or if I never really give the inside rein and see if the horse will stay connected to the outside rein, I'm blocking that inside hind a little bit. So throughness talks about all the energy coming through the horse's body and then what the rider does with it, okay? So the reason I'm after you a little bit today like a terrier on a bone, and I apologize, but if I don't, I'm not doing you any favors. You're a good rider, and you want to get to the point where someone says, wow, look at that girl's hands in the trot. Woo, man, she is so consistent and quiet and correct. It's a little bit of a missing piece right now, and part of it comes from, quite frankly, taking a 20-year-old horse and saying, okay, now you're going to be supple. When it just hasn't, he's been probably very successful as a fox hunter. Maybe as he got older, he wasn't as fast. That's why he's not a fox hunter anymore. I don't know. It doesn't matter. Either way, you're teaching him from being sort of a cross-country runner to now being a dancer. Okay?
Yeah.
Not easy. You can do it, and you are doing it. And I can tell you're very determined. You have many good things about your riding. This whole piece about the hands and the connection is just something you needed more explanation of, okay? And when the horse has good days and bad days, it could be stiffness behind, and it reflects in the mouth. So the more you can get him to give you more willing crossing in your leg yield with a little more march, it's a little too slow, the more he really fluidly goes into that turn of the forehand, the easier this will be. Because it's all connected. Throughness, back end, through the front end. Can't go wrong.
Yeah.
And it's important too, you have to be able to verbalize the concepts, guys. You can't just, I know you're a good rider, but when I said talking about throughness, you're like, what words do I choose? So this is also an important part of it. I do a lot of this. Because for me, with adults, you have to be able to verbalize the concepts in order to be consistent in your riding. Okay? To really understand it. Dressage, when you think about it with jumping, not to pick on jumping, but what do? You point and you shoot. You at the middle of the jump, you have the same speed basically. You have this, and especially with hunters, over little jumps all the time. It's really very simplistic. If we're talking about the same course for a dressage rider, was the horse in the bit? Was the horse straight? Was the horse through? Was the tempo exactly the same? Was the horse supple? Was there a half halt in between every jump? So that's why it's so much more complicated, because you really are much more analytical, in my opinion. So, nice horse. He had a job description, change. And you have to just be a little careful in that if he gets sticky, that is not going to get him through. Okay, now, the reaction of the leg and then your technique will get him through. So tomorrow I'll make sure I have a helmet that fits, and I'll warm him up a little bit for you,
Okay.
and I'll give you a little bit more feedback, and I'll just show you how I would approach it.
Okay.
And we'll see. I may say, oh boy, you're doing a good job, good girl, girlfriend, but my guess would be I'll be more insistent on the response to the leg, and then try to get to the point where I feel like he yields without me having to be too busy.
Okay.
Okay? All right.
Thank you.
Good job. You did fine. Yeah, right, thanks.